But moving on, let's go to Zimbabwe now, where anti-riot police stormed the house of opposition lawmaker in Zimbabwe, Costa Machingota, and arrested a politician and 24 others who were holding a party meeting on the premises. Officials with the main opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC, said the lawmaker Costa Machingota, his wife and 17-year-old daughter were beaten up by armed officers before he was carried away during the raid in the Budiriro suburb south of the capital, Harare.
According to the police, the meeting had not yet been authorized, and those arrested will be charged with breaking public order regulations. Let's now bring in CCC Deputy Spokesperson Ostalos Ziba. Ostalos, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Morning, thank you for having me.
Ostalo, what do you make of this unfortunate incident that's been reported about the assault of this MP? First of all, give us a background to this story.
Thank you very much. Zimbabwe is a clear, a country where the state is turned against its own citizens. We had our meeting, which is a private meeting of our members of the party in Budiriro, which is a constituency in Harare. And, the first argument by the police was that the meeting must be cleared by the police, but that's not in the law. Private meetings in this country are allowed. The Law and Maintenance Order Act provides for clearance only if you are doing a public meeting and, of course, with members of the public. This was a private meeting with private members of our movement, and the police stormed the venue and arrested 25 of our leaders, including our National Organizing Secretary, Honorable Amos Chibai, who is also a member of Parliament. And during the arrest and in the process therein, our members were assaulted. The wife of our honorable member who was hosting us, because this meeting was in the private residence of our member of Parliament, Honorable Machingauda, the wife was assaulted, the daughter was assaulted, and several members of our movement, including women and children, which is a very sorry state. And unfortunately, when we went to the police in Budiriro, our lawyer, Advocate Kadzer, was again also assaulted by the police. It's a clear sign that the state is turned against its citizens, lawyers, journalists. No one is safe in our country. Our movement is treated as a banned organization, because we have been disadvantaged and disallowed to exercise our constitutionally guaranteed right to freedom of assembly.
Well, I want to understand what exactly is going on. Because there's also a video clip that I had seen, that I think took place a few days ago, where an old man was being flogged along with others by alleged thugs or supporters of ZANU-PF, because he was accused of being a CCC member or a CCC supporter. So what exactly is going on with the ZANU-PF and the CCC, and why is there so much violence, seeming violence allowed against CCC members and supporters in your country?
Look, there has been so many researches by independent and different organs of the state that prove beyond any scientific doubt that President Chamisa is going to win the next election, which is supposed to be happening in the next 6 months. And because of that, the regime is petrified, and the regime has gone back to its default fascist violent mode. The video that you saw is a video that was taken a few days ago in Mashonaland East, which is the countryside in Zimbabwe, where our members were having a meeting, and ZANU-PF unleashed its marauding crowds and thugs to go and beat up, the elderly who were having a meeting in that part of the country. And this is ironic because the regime claims to have having support and control in the rural areas, portraying Triple as an urban movement. But why would you beat up people when you've got the support? It's clear Zimbabweans are exhausted and tired of ZANU's empty nationalist rhetoric that has failed to transform the concrete realities of ordinary people. So the waves and the momentum of change is sweeping over the entire country, both in urban and rural areas. And therefore, the regime, realizing that particular trend in the surging support of the movement, as has been confirmed by the Afrobarometer survey and different researches and surveys that have been used to try and look into the future of Zimbabwe's next election. So that as it may, the regime obviously has pressed the panic button And it's clear that we are getting into an election without democracy. We are getting into an election without fundamental freedoms, without fundamental recognition of the law and respect of the same. So these are the conditions around which the pre-election environment in Zimbabwe is, as we face the most important election in Zimbabwe, which has a huge potential to bring the much needed democratic breakthrough.
I'd like you to react to something on the front page of the Newsday newspaper in Zimbabwe, and the big story says elections already rigged, and this is according to the CSOs. The civil society organizations and opposition political parties have claimed that the recently released preliminary delimitation report exposed a rigging plot by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, ZEC. There are also headlines of "We want elections, not war," and this is according to the CCC. What's going on as regards the elections? Are you in support of this delimitation report already being rigged by the ZEC, and what are the projections concerning the elections in Zimbabwe?
Look, the election in Zimbabwe has always had its own problems and has been contested in different, phases. One of the most central issues around ZANU's menu of manipulation is the issue of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, which is a compromised institution and has failed the credibility and the transparency in its test. And the recent delimitation report reveals that beyond any shadow of scientific doubt, because there is, number one, lack of elite consensus within the regime itself. The commissioner of the commissioner, of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, presented a report, but 7 of the other commissioners did not sign the report. So there is at that level lack of elite consensus on whether we should go ahead with the delimitation report or not. We have expressed our concerns through the ad hoc committee on delimitation, which we are part and parcel of, to express that there was visible gerrymandering in, delimiting particularly boundaries in wards and constituencies between the urban and rural constituencies. Number 2, we have expressed our concern again around the lack of consultation in the process, thereby showing that the delimitation process must be looked into. We have said there's a room to amend and make the document better. Failure to do so, Zimbabwe will be forced to go back to the old delimitation boundaries. So, but as I'm saying that there's also lack of elite consensus within ZANU itself. The center is failing to hold, the Falcon failing to hear the Falconer. So that is current predicament within the state itself, and delimitation now has been used as a platform to advance ZANU-PF's factional fights, where the other faction is pulling the other way and holding the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission in a ransom. So this is the challenge we are having. We have said once we make the amendment, one of the important things in our view that must be reviewed is the voters' roll, because we must have the voters' roll to ascertain the number of people that the commission says they are in a particular constituency. So these are some of our concerns in the pre-electoral environment. Failure to do so, it confirms the civil society's position that there's an attempt to manipulate the election. But we have done everything necessary to make sure that we hold a degree of fairness and freeness, and make sure that we do a lot of authoritarian pushback as an alternative, so that Zimbabwe must have a free and fair election.
Now, let's also have your response to police spokesperson Paul Nyati, who says that they are investigating. He accepts that people were, were beaten up and arrested. But he also mentions that it was an unsanctioned gathering, according to them. So what's your response to that, and how the police has handled the issue so far?
Look, we have argued as a movement that we respect the police and we expect the police to act in a manner that is professional. We don't expect the police to be taking instructions from political competitors, because what we know, the law, because that's why the police cannot, provide for any section of the law that says private meetings must be sanctioned by the police. This is not a public meeting. We have applied for clearance when we're holding public meetings, but private meetings are not supposed to be cleared by the police. So we expect that the police is going to be professional, particularly as we head into the election. We don't expect, unprofessional conduct and partisan execution of the duties by the secretariats in the country, because we don't believe that politicians must give instructions, to the institutions of the state.
All right. Thank you so much, Ostalos Siziba, for joining us this morning. We will be keeping up to date with the story to see how the police handles it. And we do hope all the best for the CCC and the ZANU-PF. One day, maybe they will see things eye to eye and move Zimbabwe forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.